Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 12th Canto, Chapter 3. I can't see the number.
It's 31.
31. Tasmat Shudra Drisho Matya Shudra Bhagya Mahasana Kamino Vitahinascha Svairindyascha Striyosati. Translation. Because of the bad qualities of the age of Kali, human beings will become short-sighted, unfortunate, gluttonous, lustful, and poverty-stricken. The women, becoming unchaste, will freely wander from one man to the next. Purport. In the age of Kali, certain pseudo-intellectuals seeking individual freedom support sexual promiscuity. In fact, identification of the self with the body and the pursuit of individual freedom in the body rather than in the soul are signs of the most dismal ignorance and slavery to lust. When women are unchaste, many children are born out of wedlock as products of lust. These children grow up in psychologically unfavorable circumstances, and a neurotic, ignorant society arises. Symptoms of this are already manifest throughout the world. Om Ajnana Timarandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chakshu Unminitam Yinatasmai Shigirane Namaha Ukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langayate Ganim Yat Kripa Tamaham Vande Shigunandina Taranam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namani Namaste Saraswate Deva Gauravani Pacharini Vishesha Shanyavadi Hostachadi Satarani Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Because of the bad qualities of the age of Kali, human beings will become short-sighted, unfortunate, gluttonous, lustful, and poverty-stricken. The women, becoming unchaste, will freely wander from one man to the next. So, this is a well-known chapter from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Well-known because in this chapter there is a very elaborate description of the characteristics of Kali Yuga. The Srimad Bhagavatam was a message that was delivered because the sages of Naimisharanya had gathered and they were concerned that specifically in the coming age of Kali Yuga, there would be no means for the welfare, ultimate welfare of human beings. And they wanted to know specifically, in preparation for the coming age, what would be the best method by which the people could be engaged in ultimate religious activities. Understanding this, they actually described, in the beginning of their inquiry, described some of the characteristics of Kali Yuga. Men as quarrelsome, lazy, misguided, unlucky, and above all, always disturbed. This chapter of the Bhagavatam gives a very elaborate description, details of the characteristics of Kali Yuga. And here in today's verse, we have some of the many descriptions which are given. as the verse describes, because of the bad qualities of this age, human beings will become short-sighted, unfortunate. We see the word unfortunate here again, but we also quoted that from the verse from the first canto. Gluttonous, lustful, and poverty-stricken. And short-sighted, we can understand how it is. Prabhupada speaks about this, the difference between Shreyas and Preyas. Short-sightedness is thinking about the immediate benefit, result. Prabhupada uses the phrase quite frequently in the first canto of the Bhagavatam, stopgap political measures. What does the stopgap political measures imply? It implies that, I guess it's like the story of putting the finger in one's dike, in the dike, to stop the flood. It's not really the solution, it's a very temporary solution. And we see it's very prevalent in this age where people adopt various political measures looking for an immediate solution to conflict in society. But the measures that they employ, because they're based upon diplomacy, they're based upon lying, cheating, they're based upon selfish interests. We see that it may appear to stave off or to temporarily avert some immediate disaster, but as we know, and Prabhupada oftentimes even openly stated, that they can only do this for so long. Prabhupada oftentimes would declare that they are building nuclear bombs and don't think that they're not going to use them. Nobody's going to invest so much time, money, energy in the production of nuclear bombs simply as a measure for defense. And as we've seen in history, has shown in the past of world disasters, that why should we think that we're living in a more civilized society today where such things cannot happen? And Prabhupada, no, he is Trikalagya. His vision is perfect. And certainly, he said, they will use. When? We don't know. Of course, we know that conversation. It was a famous conversation. I remember when that conversation took place, when Prabhupada intimated that soon there will be a world war, and the devotees were trying to get Prabhupada to give date, time, what should we do? And I remember even in New Vrindavan, it was the motto for, or no, it was like, not motto, what was it? What do you call it? The slogan. That Prabhupada made the statement in preparation. Therefore, we should utilize this in preparation for the war. And the devotee, I remember visiting New Vrindavan. It was in 74, 75, I can't remember. I was in traveling Sankirtan. I stopped there, and one devotee told me, "Did you hear what Prabhupada said?" I can't remember what year Prabhupada said it, but obviously it had to have been before that time. And I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "You should stay here in New Vrindavan, Prabhu. We're getting ready for nuclear war." And Prabhupada said it, but of course he gave no date, no time. But we know that the stopgap political measures which are employed by the cheating propaganda of the lying politicians and the stopgap political measures, we know it may temporarily look like that we've been able to avert some immediate disaster, but this is the Shreyas versus Preyas. We have to understand, Prabhupada specifically states that Shreyas is like the child who goes out to play, Preyas is like the, I forgot. Anyway, Shreyas is the long-term, prayas is the immediate. Prayas is like the child who goes out to play, thinking that I don't want to go to school, I'd rather enjoy immediately. And Shreyas is far-sighted. Prayas is short-sighted, and Shreyas is far-sighted. Short-sighted means the immediate, to avert some disaster, temporarily lie, cheat, say anything to convince the opposing side that we're not their enemy and that we can be friends. And then, of course, the ulterior motive is obviously there in every politician in Kali Yuga, is they're simply out for their own self-aggrandizement. They want to be known as the person who changed the course of events in the world, like our illustrious president of the great nation, the United States, who certainly wants his name in the pages of the history books as somebody who's changed the course of events in modern history. But they're only interested in their own self-aggrandizement. They're only interested in their profit, and they, by their duplicitous nature, they will try to convince the people that they're actually acting in the interest, and sometimes they may even believe it themselves. And Prabhupada explains that unless the leaders of society base their political strategies on a spiritual foundation, then it is hell-bent. It's destined for destruction. And therefore we don't see such morality, we don't see such principles in our modern day leaders. It is only stopgap political measures which may appear to at least avert some immediate disaster. Maybe even in our whole lifetime we may be able to be averted. But the cumulative effect of the sinful reactions which the leaders of society are not taking responsibility for will have to at some point in time, take its toll. What is that famous song, Dylan in the 60s, A Hard Rain Gonna Fall? A hard rain gonna fall. Well, we can look at it, at least from our perspective. A hard rain gonna fall means that the karmic the cumulative effect of karma, and because the leaders of society are not looking for a way to stop the sinful activities of the people, but instead they're simply encouraging sinful activities. And as Prabhupada put forward very strongly in the first canto of the Bhagavatam, what is this encouragement? It's found in the slaughtering of the innocent cows. That because there is no effort whatsoever to stop this most sinful. Prabhupada even described in the Bhagavatam first canto that what happens to these innocent cows cannot even be printed on the pages of the Bhagavatam. It's impossible to conceive of what kind of reaction will come because of the widespread slaughter of cows. What to speak of in this verse, it describes also the promiscuity in the age of Kali, unrestricted sense gratification. Licentious behavior also leads to a civilization which is degraded, and that's also going to have to take its toll. Now people employ as well so many stopgap remedial measures to avoid the reactions to unrestricted sex life. But although of course I'm sure that restraint is probably spoken about in some circles, I don't know how prevalent it is. But instead we know that the most prevalent propaganda in modern day society is if it feels good, do it, and avoid the consequences by some artificial means. It is not Shreyas. It is simply prayer and enjoy senses to the fullest extent. So this is described here as short-sighted, and because of their short-sightedness, they are very unfortunate. Gluttonous, this is interesting, of course. I don't know the statistics. I'm not somebody who always is absorbed in reading, but I do from time to time on a flight, since I'm on the airplane often, and since they hand out Newsweek and Time magazines, I'll catch up. And I catch these articles, which seem to be quite common, about that, that in a specific, especially in America, obesity, right, has become a major problem, not only in older people, but obesity in young children. And therefore we see, that also it is described that because persons cannot control their tongues and control their senses, and they have no sense of self-restraint, same principle. And obviously it is due to so much anxiety as well, because people in this age of Kali, there's been so much anxiety, always disturbed. Therefore, what do? To try to avoid disturbance, they take shelter in unrestricted sense enjoyment. And so here we see lustful, and this is another characteristic of Kali Yuga, uncontrolled lust, and poverty-stricken. Of course, poverty-stricken, we may look at it in different ways. Commentary gives no indication that Shukadeva Goswami was implying that material poverty, spiritual poverty. But it is, to some degree, indicated in the commentary, where it's stated here, in fact, identification of the self with the body and the pursuit of individual freedom in the body, rather than in the soul, are signs of the most dismal ignorance and slavery to lust. So we can understand that by this indication, poverty-stricken may also mean spiritually bankrupt. That in this age, people have this false conception of wealth as being the ultimate, of material wealth as being the ultimate asset in life. But because they're looking for freedom, independence I have, the more I can fulfill my desires and gratify my desires without restraint. I'm free to purchase and to go where I wish to go, to do what I wish to do, and to enjoy whatever I wish to enjoy. And this material wealth, of course, leads to bondage and suffering. And therefore they don't realize that although they try to become independent in the body, they have become bound and shackled by the chains of their lust. And we see what it produces. So wealthy people of the world, they have so much money, but where is their enjoyment? Where is their happiness? I think of not long ago. Sometimes from time to time, I hear things about, our Beatles of the '60s, and I was reading one article again also in a magazine about our Sir Paul McCartney and the suffering. Although he's such a wealthy man, I guess his wealth is in the billions now. I think he's one of the highest paid entertainers in history. Yet he's so miserable. And I guess in an attempt to seek shelter in another marriage, it turned into hell. And I don't know what the latest is. It's not like I'm up on this article I read. It was quite a few months back, and it was on a flight to to California. So I think that was in June. And at that time, I think what was happening is that they were ascertaining, because he had a child with this model, she was going to milk him for a good portion, major percentage of his wealth. So we're bringing this point up simply in support of the argument about that, to think that one has so much wealth and one can do as one wishes to do, but it doesn't mean that one has the freedom to do what he wishes to do. He becomes chained and shackled by so many problems. And happiness, of course, is not purchased. What is it? I think it was even Paul McCartney, Lennon and McCartney, who authored the song "Can't Buy Me Love." It was Lennon and McCartney, wasn't it? No, so much money you may have, but you can't buy love. Which is, of course, the greatest source of real happiness and enjoyment. It cannot be purchased with wealth, but it can only be purchased by understanding one's relationship with the Supreme Lord and with Krishna. So poverty-stricken can be understood to mean spiritually bankrupt. That although it may appear that there are so many people who are wealthy, of course, still, I think also one of the problems today that we see is that human society is top-heavy, that there are many wealthy people, but although they have so much wealth, the wealth is becoming wealthier and the poor are becoming poorer.
Well, there's a study by the United Nations that says that currently 1 billion people live in a state of poverty that has never before been experienced on the planet.
Yeah, interesting statistic.
Poorer than anyone has ever been before, and they estimate that it will, by the middle of this century, it will quintuplicate. It will be something most
double. Is that what you said?
Quintuplicate 5 times.
5 times.
That about 2.5 billion people will be living in abject poverty in slums.
Yes. Well, we can understand, and this is actually a very good point, because actually as you were saying that, I was thinking about the description given in the 4th canto of the Bhagavatam about Maharaj Prithu. Because people were exploiting the earth, Mother Earth decided that she would withhold grains, withhold the seeds, and they would not produce grains. And we see that specifically in Kali Yuga, that the exploitation of material resources, somebody showed me when I was in California, it was an interesting video. It was called, can't remember what it was called. But the video was about how the fossil fuels have peaked on the planet, the production of fossil fuel, and how the scientists have ascertained that because it's already peaked and because the consumption now is over the level of production, how very soon that society as we know it is going to be completely changed. And it's the end of suburbia. That's what the video is called. The end of suburbia. And the authors of the video, of the documentary, they were scientists, a collective group of scientists who collaborated in producing this to give evidence of how, possibly within our lifetime, we will see that there'll be insufficient fossil fuel, and because people have built up suburbia based upon the use of fuels to get themselves into the city to work, that suburbia will not be able to survive in the not too distant future. They portrayed it in such a way that people will have to go back into the cities and become resourceful and get all the resources within the cities. But personally, I felt it was not totally objective, the video, in their conclusion. It was actually an advertisement for for some man who was a city planner. And anyways, they did their homework. So if we look and we study Bhagavatam, we see the example of Prithu Maharaj, and how Bhumi, this is Bhumi Gita we're reading from, Bhumi decided, because people were taking the resources and they were exploiting resources simply for their own sense enjoyment, and were not using it for the purpose of sacrifice. Bhumi withheld grains, and people in society, they were planting seeds, but there was no production. There were no grain. This is wealth. In Vedic society, wealth is not artificial wealth as we see today, which is simply manifested in currency with no sufficient gold and real wealth to back it up. But real wealth is grains, production of vegetables and milk products and minerals, precious jewels and gems, and which are available in abundance. This is the wealth that was existent in Vedic times. But what happened is that they were planting seeds, but Bhumi would not allow grains to be produced. And she explained her reason. I'm withholding because people are not, they're simply exploiting resources. Why should I? But of course, Prithu Maharaj was a powerful king. He threatened Bhumi and punished her, and he forced her and made it a suitable arrangement by which she could actually resume and give, and so that the seeds would bear fruit. But Prithu Maharaj, being the great king as he was, had to properly organize things and organize sacrifice in such a way so that Bhumi would once again produce grains. But the symptom was there. And therefore we can understand that poverty-stricken seems to imply that although right now it appears there's a lot of wealth, but it seems to imply that because of the gross abuse and exploitation, that this planet, people are going to be totally poverty-stricken. In fact, again and again and again we see in the media the concerns. I think just recently the head of the UN called a meeting of leaders, world leaders from all over the world to come and to discuss the problems with the greenhouse effect and how all the different societies, they have to change their mode of operation because ultimately it's going to destroy the planet. And he was expressing his lamentation that everybody is just, sidestepping the issue, because it means to change the way they produce and to change the effect. It means it's going to hurt their economy, and nobody wants to do anything which is going to hurt their economy. So nobody's doing anything. And the scientists are saying again and again and again, pointing that the human beings are destroying the planet. This is Kali Yuga. And because people are not satisfied with what is real wealth, they think to continue to go on exploiting resources for the production of so many unnecessary things is going to lead to their happiness. And therefore, what will happen in Kali Yuga, Bhagavatam describes, in Kali Yuga, people will live old age, a person will die of old age at 10. That will be and people will not see the light of day. There'll be no sun. They'll be living underground because the planet will become so heavily polluted. They will not see sunlight. Mm-hmm. And what were the other symptoms? I can't remember. I know Prabhupada, I can't remember if it's in the Bhagavatam. Prabhupada said people will be having children just to eat them. Because there'll be no food. No food. This is the progression. This is what Kali Yuga, as things are progressing in Kali Yuga. So, why are all these things mentioned? Well, I think we should also understand that all this we've discussed now adequately, at least those things relevant to this verse of the Bhagavatam. There's so many other verses in this chapter which give more details of the symptoms of Kali Yuga. But why are they given? And we understand that that the real jewel, also in the same chapter, is a very well-known verse that Kaleya dosha nide raja nasti heko mahadgana kirtana deva krishnasya mukta sangha param vajet. That Kali Yuga is dosha nide. All right, now after examining all the qualities of Kali Yuga, Kaleya dosha nide rajan, Sukadeva Goswami saying, O king, Kali Yuga is an ocean of all bad qualities. But what is the crest jewel? What is the saving grace in the age of Kali? Right? All right, looking at all of these qualities now that we've described, Kirtana Deva Krishnasya Mukta Sangha Paramvachet, that one can avert all of these disasters in Kali Yuga by chanting Hare Krishna. This is why all these things are brought to light in this section of the Bhagavata. That our only hope, and the only hope for the people in the age of Kali, and to avoid disasters to the magnitude of which we have already described, is in the age of Kali there's only one redeeming principle. People, and it's also described that Kali Yuga, I can't remember, I think it's in this canto of the Bhagavatam, Kali Yuga is glorified. Kali Yuga is glorified because of the potency of the holy name in Kali Yuga. Therefore, the age of Kali Yuga is glorified for this principle. Because in the age of Kali Yuga, the holy name of the Lord is the only way to, and it's so powerful. I think Prabhupada also explains in his commentary in another verse in the 5th canto of the Bhagavatam, which describes Kali Yuga. He says that the demigods are eager to take birth on this planet in Kali Yuga because of the influence of Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement on this planet. And Prabhupada even said that in one place he said the demigods will be waiting in line to take birth in this movement. Because, again, of the same principle, Prabhupada came to inundate the planet with the congregational chanting of the holy names of the Lord. This was his mission, to induce people to take up the chanting. And his mission, of course, was not only to induce people to take up the chanting, but to dedicate their lives in total dedication and service to the holy name of the Lord. Because the holy name of the Lord is so powerful that all of these bad qualities which are described in this chapter can be averted by the power of Krishna, who is manifesting himself in his holy name. So that is the reason why all these characteristics, we don't have to read the Bhagavatam to see them. We can see them for ourselves. And an intelligent person who can see them can understand that the message really which is supposed to be accepted and understood is that these bad qualities which are innate within the residents of Kali Yuga, and also to some degree even innate within ourselves, can all be overcome by the power of taking shelter of the holy name of the Lord. So, I think I should stop here. Any questions or comments?
No, we should go out. It's
Huh?
suffering now.
Excuse me?
Now you can feel comfortable. It's a comfort to know that.
What? The chanting?
Yeah. Holy name will save everything.
Yeah. When we actually, just like I was thinking as I was saying this, that Maya is very powerful. And and the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna describes knowledge is to know the nature of birth, death, disease, and old age, to know the suffering in this world, right? And because when we understand and we see the potency of the illusory energy and we see the suffering, then it gives us the impetus to take shelter. We're so fortunate. This word Bhagyavan, we describe here unfortunate in this verse, but fortunate means that the fortunate person who's come in contact with the holy name of the Lord. That is his fortune. We don't realize the great fortune because at least until we come in contact with the holy name of the Lord, there is no solution. All there is mental speculation, mental concoction, and stopgap remedial measures to the prevailing problems of Kali Yuga. Nobody, you can go to the psychologists, you can go to the doctors, medical doctors, you can go, everybody's going looking for solutions to so many ailments. As we were describing, I think it was here, I can't remember the other day, we're talking about mental illness as being the most prevalent disease. Right? People are going looking for solutions. And what is their solution? It's just another medication, another stopgap measure. But actually there's no real solution because the problems will still continue. If one really wants to make a solution to the problems, to the suffering, then when we see all this suffering, it will give us the impetus because we're so fortunate that we've been introduced to the holy name of the Lord. And it gives us the impetus to take shelter. Therefore, we can look at the suffering of others, see the suffering in the material world, see the power of Kali Yuga, and see the power of the illusory energy of Maya, who's constantly alluring us and trying to tempt us and to make us a victim of her power, especially in this age of Kali. But when we see her temptations, we should immediately recognize that this is the test of Maya. Therefore, Maya, she can actually, for the devotee, Maya helps the devotee because when Maya displays her powers before the devotee sees, oh no, it is simply glitter. It is simply some fool's gold. It is some glitter. That is all. All that glitters is not gold, this is the expression. As it says, all that glitters is not gold. So in the same way, Maya offers the glitter of enjoyment in the material world, but the devotee sees, no, that is suffering. That is suffering. He knows that one of the characteristics of the devotee is that he knows that all sense gratification leads to suffering. Right? So he sees the power of the illusory energy, and he sees that as his impetus to take shelter in the holy name of the Lord. Therefore, the devotee is very fortunate in that sense because he's been introduced to the holy name. And because he's been introduced, then he has to see directly the connection between the allurements of Maya and the accessibility and availability of Krishna in his name. They're directly connected. Maya pushes the devotee to take shelter by her allurements. When the devotee sees the power of the illusory energy, then he becomes afraid. How powerful is this Maya? He becomes so afraid that he realizes that even I had an experience just a few nights ago. I mentioned it to some devotees. I just accepted it as Krishna telling me. You always have to remember me. The closest I came to death in this life. It was the closest. I've been in a few accidents and something like that. But I was driving back from Life Members' home, and it was a very, very heavy rain that night. And I was just in the car, and I'm not sufficiently mindful of Krishna, and I hit the road had terrible drainage, and it was raining hard, and what do you call it? Hydroplane. And I tried to, I didn't hit the brakes. I know the first thing you do is don't hit the brakes. And I tried to steer into the skid and get out of it. I got out of it, and I hit like another place that was like a lake. And I lost all control of the vehicle. And this is a highway. People are driving 55 miles an hour. I was driving between 50 and 55. So a little slower than the speed limit because it was raining so hard. And cars were on all sides, and this vehicle was just spinning, and I had no control of the vehicle. No control. Completely. And cars were all around me. And I don't know how I ended up where I ended up. I don't know. I literally do not know. It's if somebody picked up the car. I was in the left lane, somebody picked up the car and put it on the exit ramp out of harm's way. I was on the exit ramp. I didn't even know there was an exit ramp there. But there were all these cars were going by. It was busy time of the night. I didn't hit a single car. I did hit something. The car spun around a couple of times. And no control, and I hit a sign, some sign, and the sign I think probably just, I'm going into detail because I'm just describing that I don't know how I survived. And when I finally stopped, I just realized, was I thinking of Krishna? You don't know. You don't know. You just don't know what's going to happen. And of course we may call out Hare Krishna, Krishna's name in a time of difficult circumstances, but at any moment, Govinda Das says, this life is like a drop of water in a lotus petal. At any moment it can fall off. At a single moment. So we have to understand that the holy name of the Lord is our shelter. And at any moment we can leave this body. We can give up our place, our position, everything that we tried so hard to secure in a moment, gone. And what is our shelter except the holy name? There's no other shelter. Krishna is making himself so accessible in his name. If we dedicate our lives to the holy name of the Lord, then all of these prevalent problems in Kali Yuga. Therefore, Maya, as we were saying before, Maya helps the devotee by pushing the devotee to take shelter in Krishna. The devotee says, "No, I'm not. I know it. I know who you are. I know exactly who you are." And it's like Haridas Thakur, when Maya Devi herself came, tried to allure. Haridas Thakur, knew. When the prostitute came, he knew who she was representing also. And he stayed in that place only for one reason, to deliver the prostitute. And Maya Devi came also. But Haridas Thakur, he showed by his perfect example, when personification of Maya Devi herself came, he just simply took shelter of the holy. She could not allure him in any way. I know who you are. Therefore, devotee sees that any allurement, especially in this age, is just simply Maya testing us to remind us that, are you remembering to chant Hare Krishna? Are you remembering to take shelter in the holy name? Are you remembering to call out the holy name? Or do you think there's actually some value in what I'm about to offer you? And that's our test. And we have to consciously make a decision. If we consciously make a decision, make the right decision, then we get more and more strength to avoid the allurements of the illusory energy. And therefore, for the devotee, Maya is helping the devotee, pushing him to Krishna. For the non-devotee, Maya is enticing. And because the non-devotee he thinks, you're my shelter. Prabhupada gives the example. Maya's, you put your head on the lap of Maya and she cuts your throat. So, but a non-devotee, he thinks, oh yes, let me take shelter. So, Maya is helping the devotee by giving us the impetus to take shelter of the holy name. So that is our protection. Protection always under all circumstances is found in these 16 syllables. Iti Shuddhashikam Nam Nam Kalikamasha Nashanam. The 16 syllables of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra.
It looks like natural disasters and also terroristic disasters are increasing, and even the devotees in ISKCON sometimes lose their lives. And I was thinking, it's nice if somehow or the other we can eventually become perfect, like Srila Prabhupada or Haridas Thakur, and be totally surrendered to Krishna. Maybe you can say something about that.
Well, It's, ultimately, of course, we have to come to that platform to be like Srila Prabhupada and Haridas Thakur in terms of total shelter in the holy name of the Lord. But if we want to come to that stage, then there are also stages, preliminary stages before coming to that stage. There is the offensive stage of chanting, there is the clearing stage of chanting, and then there's the stage when one is chanting Shuddhanam, the pure holy name of the Lord. We know certainly that Srila Prabhupada was chanting Shuddhanam, Haridas Thakur is chanting Shuddhanam, and until we actually can come to that stage, we at least have to try to clear ourselves. And the way to clear ourselves from the offenses of chanting the holy name of the Lord is by knowing what are the offenses and by consciously trying to avoid them. By knowing the pitfalls, the traps of Kali Yuga and the traps of the illusory energy, and consciously endeavoring to avoid them. And in this way, although we may not be chanting purely, a devotee who makes the effort to become free from offenses, who makes the effort to control his mind and senses, then Krishna will help him more and more, so that he can gradually come to the platform of pure chanting of the holy name of the Lord. By the grace of the Lord and by the grace of the devotee of the Lord. One also has to chant in the association of devotees who have taste for the holy name of the Lord. And if we hear from them, we hear the glories of the holy name of the Lord from their lips. It is described by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, Chaitanya Charitamrita. One has to learn about the truth and beauty of the Lord's holy name by hearing the revealed scriptures from the mouths of Vaishnavas. There's no other way to taste the sweetness of the Lord's holy name. So we have to associate with devotees who have taste, and we have to try to give up offenses ourselves. And by chanting on that platform, then we can come to the stage of pure chanting, such as Srila Prabhupada and Haridas Thakur. But we should not think that we can immediately come to that platform without making the effort ourselves. That's what we should, at least on this platform, that's what we should understand. We should aspire for it, and we should make the endeavor, and seek out the association, and make the endeavors to become free from offenses. All right, we'll stop here. Hare Krishna.